Okay, friends, welcome. I am here with a very special guest, Jim Morningstar, PhD. Jim is the director of Transformations Incorporated. Jim has a licensure in clinical psychology, and he's been doing that work since the 1970s. He is a clinical supervisor, a seminar leader, has pioneered in the integration of psychotherapy with such mind body techniques as therapeutic breathwork and biospiritual energetics. He founded the School of Integrative Psychology in 1980 and the Transformations Breathwork program in 1990, and has authored 5 books in the field of spiritual psychology. He is the co-director of the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance and founder of In Wellness. Jim's 33 years of courses in integrative psychology are available online and through his training programs, 4 levels of breathworker certification that can be obtained as a professional breathworker. Jim also travels and teaches internationally. Welcome, Jim. I'm so excited
Oh,
to have you.
it's such a
Hello.
joy to be here with you, Chauna. Uh, as you were reading that, I was thinking, yes, I've started a lot of new things in my life. I seem to like to do that. And that's why I'm so overjoyed in working with you today because of your pioneer efforts. You are really bringing breath work to new communities. You are, I would say, an inspiration, I think. And so I feel a kindred spirit with you.
Yes, the feeling is mutual. So I start all of these interviews in the exact same way, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to do the same. Will you please state your name, your pronouns, and your job title?
I'm Jim Morningstar, and my pronouns are he, him, his. And I'm director of Transformations Incorporated and co-director of the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance.
I love that. I think job titles are really interesting, especially in our fields, to kind of see how everyone sees themselves or states their job. Will you please share your astrology signs? Some people love to know that.
Well, I'm a Libra, but I'm on the cusp with Scorpio, but definitely a Libra. I feel balance is really important to me in my life.
Amazing. We were just talking about balance shortly before we hit record. I love that that's coming back up. Will you talk a bit about your spiritual upbringing? Like, did you grow up in a religious household?
Yes. Grew up with Roman Catholicism as the religion I was taught, and made a transition, say, in late teenage years to a broader sense of spirituality. And I do see a little difference between religion, which is a formal teaching of spiritual doctrine, and spirituality, which I think is pretty universal. And people, from my perspective, have a spiritual nature, regardless of who they are or what they were taught or how they were brought up. And finding the vehicle for that spiritual nature to be expressed in their life is, well, a lifelong quest. And sometimes religion is a very important part of that. I can say that as far as Catholicism goes, when I left the formal aspect of the religion to study all other forms of spirituality, I also began to get an appreciation for many of the things that I was taught from my childhood. So I've kind of circled back and recognized, oh, yes, I hear them now with different ears and see them with different eyes.
Absolutely. I find that to be really similar. Sticking with childhood, will you say a bit about what you wanted to do when you grew up? Like when you were a kid, what did you think you were going to do for a living?
Well, if we go all the way back, a lot of childhood things of being a fireman and being, an athlete, and at one point also being a priest. And because I love people and I love working with people. And I love that type of interaction and that spiritual calling. And then I saw that in a way, I still have that same spiritual calling, but it's in a different format than the traditional formats that I looked at. I also engaged in a lot of athletics in my younger years, because that was an area in which you could express yourself more emotionally and fully. Because in my household, emotional expression was not encouraged. Even too much joy or excitement was like, keep it down. Now, this is nothing against my parents. I'm just saying this is the way they were brought up. And I think a way that they would channel their energies so they weren't as wild as my father came from a family of 13 on a farm up north in Wisconsin. My mother came from also a family in northern Wisconsin. And then they came down to the big city. My father worked for General Electric most of his life. And so they became a lot more, let's say, mainstream in their life. And I always wanted to break out of the box, so to speak. In athletics, I was generally the team captain because what I loved to do was to find who did what best and work together as a team. And that's what I love now. It's not like, oh, there's the good players and the bad players, or good people or bad people. It's we're all here and we have a place on this team in life. Where do we fit in? Where is it that we truly can shine and support the whole team? That's kind of actually still my life philosophy. All of the different nations, all of the different races, all of the different socioeconomic statuses, all the different sexual orientations, we all are part of the same fabric. How do we fit in and intersect in a meaningful and mutually fulfilling way?
Yeah, wow. Who did what best and where did they fit in? Um, I really like that. I think that's a beautiful way of looking at things and a great way of seeing people for their value and really helping them step into roles and spaces where they can truly feel that confidence, like they're contributing in their best self.
Yes.
So cool. Okay, well, you talk about how you ended up in psychiatry.
Well, actually, there's a distinction between psychology and psychiatry. Psychiatry, people go to medical school, and I thought about that, but no, that's not my calling. I chose psychology because I had the opportunity to work with people, but also you could look at research and indulge the scientific side of myself. And so did the whole enchilada with education. I went into master's degrees, clinical psychology PhD degree. And when I was done with that, 2 days after I completed my doctorate, my wife and I hopped on a plane and went to Africa because so much head learning. And I knew I didn't want to just be a talking head in a room, in a box with people. I loved helping people, but that didn't really resonate with me as what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And so I either had to go into full-time psychoanalysis or go to Africa. So I chose going to Africa because that felt like going back to roots. That felt like going back to the roots of civilization. And there in the Sahara Desert, it's like, bong, it came to me. I've got to get back to the earth. So, and by the way, people don't have much of an idea of scale from Africa. You can fit the United States 1.5 times just in the Sahara Desert, which is a little part of Africa. So it's a huge consciousness continent, and more stories about that, but that's not our point here.
Oh, I want at least one story. I'd like at least one about the Sahara Desert, please.
Well, we weren't going by motor coach. This was post student time, and we were traveling with the people. So we were traveling in on trucks and in crowded little vans, just the way people would ordinarily travel. I was commissioned by Jordan Gubani, who lived with my cousin in Washington, D.C. Jordan was the editor of Gandhi's newspaper in South Africa. And Jordan was a Zulu, and he knew the chief of the Zulu, Chief Buthelezi, and he introduced me and all. And so he said, you will be a representative of Africa House as you travel in Africa, which I thought was a great honor. Wherever we went, I had that consciousness in mind as I was a representative of welcoming Africa to the United States, because that's what Africa House was in Washington, D.C. I think the introduction of Africans into the United States is not just something that matters. I think it's crucial. I think the consciousness of the continent of Africa is important for the true blending of our consciousness in the United States and for a successful future.
That's amazing. We're actually going to circle back to more of your travel a little later in the conversation because I'd love to know about. I know you've done some work out in the Middle East as well, and I really I'm making a note to myself to bring that up because I think that's incredibly special as well. Okay, so moving along, just two things before we really dive into breath work. Will you please share some of your favorite pastimes? Like, what do you do for fun?
Well, as I mentioned to you earlier, when we came back to the United States, I had to get into my body more. And so we began to take Tai Chi. And I have done Tai Chi every day since the early 1970s. So it's part of my daily routine, part of my love, part of my passion. And we have various teachers. The current teacher that we have, it's all online now, of course, also teaches Neigong and other energetic type of practices. So that's been like a foundational piece in my life. And that's what took me out of formal psychology until I got into body work and body mind type of therapies. And as I said, I love to play sports, so I continue to do that. Not doing any formal sports right now, but again, I'm doing Tai Chi and Neigong and other things like that regularly.
And how do you care for yourself on tough days?
I don't just have a special program for tough days. I have a program for every day. Because to me, I do spiritual practices which include the Tai Chi, but also include things like my own breath work, my own connection with the circle of guides, which is in the picture above me here, circle of spiritual guides. I love trees. I have to be in nature sometime every day. And at the age of 76, I still climb trees. The elements, oh
Mhm.
yeah. Journaling. I have a whole routine that I do morning and evening. They're like the bookends of the day. When you dedicate your day, you start with gratitude and you dedicate your day. So you were written on my daily dedication. I said, I wanted to have a great session with Chauna today. And I want it to be beneficial for everyone that watches. And so having a conscious intention for the day, for my family, for my work, for whatever I do, and then a gratitude and an acknowledgement in the evening before I go to bed. And now it may sound like a huge bunch of journaling. No, it's not. It's like one page in a small little journal. So it's not a lot. But I have a variety of things that I do. And then I will connect and use my breath all the time. So I'm using breath work. As I mentioned to you earlier, I had a bicycle accident 2 years ago, and it was kind of reactivated when I did some heavy lifting, literally. And so now I'm waking up at night with difficulty sleeping, with pain, breath work, breath work, breath work. And breath work to me doesn't mean, some people associate that with faster than normal type of breathing. That's one tool that I use and I specialize in. But breath work to me is every form of breath. Chinese have 3,000 different breathwork techniques. They've been around a long time and they recognize the power of breath. And so using breath, the right breath for the right circumstance, part of what I do continually during the day. In fact, it's reminding me right now to take a breath. Because once you put a quarter in me and I get going, I can forget to breathe.
And I am pausing as I'm like writing all of these words down. The right breath for the right moment. That's I like that a lot, because there are so many different styles of breath work and many of them can be applicable for many different things. Thank you for saying that. So we talked a little bit about, it sounds like already kind of what you believe breathwork to be, but if you had to give just a very quick formal definition, how would you define breathwork?
Breathwork is the intimate relationship with the spirit of breath that allows you to be conscious of how you're putting spirit into life every day. I'm laughing because I've told my students I don't have a formal definition of breath work. When a person asks me, I say what comes out of my mouth. So there, you got a brand new definition of breath work.
Hot off the presses. I know when I first learned about breath work and I started practicing it, and especially when I started sharing it with others, that was one of the toughest things. Trying to tell somebody else, my friends, my partner, strangers, what it is that I do. Like, what is breath work? And I always say, like, you have to feel it, and then you can tell me what it is. But like, it's, just getting someone in the door or kind of setting them up to understand and be, open to the experience. I always like to know what people say to others. So
Well, you
yeah.
just said something very on for me right there. It says you have to feel it and then you tell me what it is.
Yeah.
That's part of my gospel around breath work is I can't teach you breath work. What I can do is I can set it up to help you discover your own breath work, because each person breathes differently and each person has their own personal relationship with the spirit of breath. So we can inspire one another, but each person finds their own breath work ultimately. And they also find you, Chauna. People are going to, you just radiate that energy and people will come. Sometimes people obsess, oh, I have to have the right website and I have to have the largest mailing list and I have to have and that's not been my experience. I believe that spirit guides people to you and you just have to keep the doors open.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Even as we record this, I will admit, and I've admitted it a bunch, that Breath Liberation Society still does not have a website. We don't have one yet. We will one day. We don't have one yet, and it's okay. We're still leading a training. We're still inviting people to commune with their breath. And as it turns out, we didn't need a gorgeous website to make that happen. I think.
That is so beautiful, Chauna. See, I hope a lot of people hear that, because they think it's the externals that do it.
Yeah.
And when and if a website comes along, it'll have come along organically. In fact, you will be putting things on it that wouldn't have been there if you had tried to do it 2 years ago.
Exactly. I've learned so much in the last 2 years. And I think I've been able to change my mind and shift really easily because I don't have a website, because I don't have to make a big decision and change a bunch of stuff. I can just feel it and then put it into action rather than having to mail a graphic designer and whatever. So, yes, when the website arrives, it will truly be from life lessons and full of I almost want to say like it'll be it'll be a full expression of what it should be rather than just what I projected or
Right.
dreamed in the beginning. It's going to be more more grounded. How about that?
Well, absolutely. And as always, as you dedicate your day and everything that you do in the day, you call on spirit to be your designer. So spirit will guide you, be with you every day, and I hold you and your students and the work you do in my heart and my prayers, Shauna.
Thank you so much.